We're live. Yeah, that kind of felt empty. Anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in until the point with Skip, who's not here, and the King. You guys know what to do. Find us, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. Well, you want to listen to us if you're driving around, if you're doing grocery shopping, if you're doing whatever. We're all grown people. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us right now. And if you are, we would appreciate it if you were to click subscribe. And if you do enjoy our content, click that bell just so you can be updated on every time we post a video. And thank you guys for all your support over the last over 4 years. And thank you for supporting our fantastic guests, especially a man right here that has not been on the show for a pretty long time, but the one and only, I call him Captain Kirk Alfaro, Esquire. Okay.
Yes, King. Thank you.
How you doing today, brother?
Thank you very much. I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on. Yes, it has been a while, and I'm really, really excited to be back on. Talking hoops, talking Raptors. It finally looks like things are about to change in a big way with the Raptors. So I'm back into them, ready to start talking about them, and yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, well, at least you're talking to me and not a judge today. So
exactly.
So let's get into this. Because we did speak about this, and apparently, let me preface this, that right now, it's apparent, the writing is on the wall, that Gary Trent Jr. will no longer be a Raptor, right? Now,
yep.
It's kind of surprising news, but kind of not surprising after what we witnessed this past season with his style of play and what he's accomplished. But let me ask you the first question, okay? I got a bunch for you. Let me ask you the first one. Why would the Raptors want to get rid of him at the end of the season, since he's becoming a free agent?
Well, I don't know if it's a matter of them wanting to get rid of him. It comes down, it's going to be a business decision, really. Like, is it feasible to keep him? Well, I guess it comes down to Toronto's other free agents. I guess it's Fred VanVleet and Jakob Poeltl. And what happens if they sign somewhere else? If they do, it's definitely possible to keep them. And out of all three, I don't see why Toronto would want to let him go. Out of all three, I would definitely want to see Fred VanVleet go. Poeltl can be a solid backup, so I hope he's not going to overvalue himself in the open market. And I could be wrong, but given Trent's season, I don't think, like when he puts those feelers out, or his agent puts those feelers out, I don't think it's going to be a very positive. I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to be a very positive. It's not going to be positive feedback that he gets. I don't think a lot of teams are going to want to take that big of a gamble on him and give him that big raise that he's looking for.
Yeah, that's $32 million, but he is signed to Clutch Sports, right? And LeBron and his boy, right? They really want to take advantage of every team when it comes down to the money. Personally, what I think the reasoning why is because although he has put up good numbers and he's in the top 10 for steals this past season, he has been hustling. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, he's not. I think that might be a major issue of concern when it comes down to consistency, and quite possibly that he doesn't fit into the vision 6'9" that the Raptors have going forward. I like what you said there about Jakob Poeltl. I think that's inevitable that they're going to keep him. There will be the Fred VanVleet issue, and tune in next week, ladies and gentlemen, because we will get deep into that. I think it's the demanding of money. If he was willing to take a smaller contract, I think the Raps could possibly keep him. But if you noticed, just from the eye test, near the end of the season, after he came back from injury and he was coming off the bench, he didn't look too happy, right? He didn't look like his head was in the game. He wasn't wearing his Blue Jays jersey that said Trent Jr. on the back. He wasn't involved. He looked disconnected to an extent. He looks like he was just there to try to up his value. chucking up the shots and, not making the right plays, right? Which I really wish, because I do like him. And I really do think that he should stay as a Raptor, especially with his love for the city and everything. But if you relieve the city, let me ask you, do you see any possible destinations for him to wind up in with that, given that he does not want to come off the bench and that he wants a larger contract and he's been dejected from the city? Do you see any possible destinations for him out there?
I mean, yeah. I don't see how any legitimate contender would not want to take him. And that goes from the Lakers to the Bucks to the Suns, Sixers.
Celtics.
Yeah. As of right now, I look at him and I see him as a solid role player coming off the bench. And that's something a contender would definitely want to have to boost their bench, right? This guy, how many seasons ago was it that he went for 30 plus for, I think it was 5 games in a row?
Yeah.
That's saying a lot, man. Not a lot of players can do that. So I see him going to a team if he does leave. I don't want to see him go, but I would like to see him exercise his player option and stay. But the Raptors could also sign and trade him. But I would see his services being acquired by a major contender, like I mentioned, Lakers, Bucks, Suns, Sixers, all the top teams, Denver. I could see him definitely going to one of those teams, and I could definitely see him, having a positive role on those teams.
You see, his first few seasons in Portland, he really wasn't impactful on the team, right? That's why the Raptors found him and decided to make a trade and bring him in. And now that he's become an integral part of this current squad that the Raptors have built up, he has, I guess you could say, like when you're an executive, I guess you can say that he's increased his value, right? And you said he would be better on a contender, but with the mind state that these guys, these young generational players are in, they're not really going after rings. They're going after to put money in their pocket and pad their stats. So you're swinging with him going to a contending team.
Well, go ahead.
With him going to a crappy team like a Houston or Orlando, somewhere down the line.
Yeah, well, I would definitely want to see him back in Toronto. And the reason why I say that is because Nick Nurse is gone, right? The great imposter is finally gone. I've been calling it for 2 years, and it's finally happened. It was very unpopular statements that I made, but ultimately they became true. And I believe that Gary Trent Jr. was not used to his maximum potential under the Nurse system, because Nurse is a defensive-minded coach. That's what his strengths are. He's a great assistant coach. He's not a good head coach because offensively he's out of his league. Yep. He really doesn't know what he's doing. I've said it many times. When you watch him, and this year was a little bit different, but because I think Masai really got into his head about, hey man, you better start doing something on offense because your defense may look good, didn't look that great this past season, not as good as other seasons, but he's just too defensive minded. I've said it many times. When you watch him coach, he's on the sidelines, he's out there directing when the team is on defense, yelling out numbers, calling out plays, whatever. When the Raptors head over to the offensive end, he relegates himself to the bench, sits down, starts talking to his assistant coach, starts fiddling with his ring. It kind of changed, like I mentioned, it kind of changed a little bit this past season. The little games that I did, muster up the courage to watch this past season, I did see him be a little bit more vocal. But again, I think it's because Masai already told him already, dude, like, you got to start doing something on the offense, man. This is embarrassing now.
Yeah, you know what? You just brought something up before we completely off script. You said something about Nick Nurse there, and we did cover on the show before Nick Nurse got fired that he will be fired, especially after his comments at the end of the season. And he I did say it could possibly be because Masai and Bobby designed this team a certain way, right? And Nick Nurse is not coming to not fulfilling that, right? Their design, right? And like you just said about the offense, and like you just said about Gary Trent not being used to his potential, there are also multiple players on this team that are not being used to the potential. I've been harping on this. Their bench can be a great bench. When you got Boucher, Precious, Colico, you got these guys coming off, Malachi, you got all these guys coming off of the bench, right? That can have a slight impact at different points in the game, depending on who you're playing. But as a former coach, from that standpoint, basketball is all a game about mismatches, right? So you'd want to throw out your better players that can take care of this guy's weaknesses, where their strengths outweigh the other players' weaknesses, and take advantage of that. But Nick Nurse didn't, because honestly, like, I have not. Normally, I watch the games with my mom. This season, I couldn't watch a game with her because I was saying every play that would happen before it happened. And me, I've never coached pro, but even just me, I could see what they're gonna do. And when I'm calling it and it happens, she's like, "Brian, just get the hell out. Go.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch the game with you," right? Like, should we get annoyed? All right. So that's what I'm saying. It was pretty evident to see what he was doing. And maybe now, see, here's the thing with Gary Trent, like, based on last season with Nick Nurse, it looks like he's on his way out. But if a new coach were to come in, right, and change the system according to what Masai and Bobby want, maybe he can rejuvenate himself and, maybe do something else. Like the other players who aren't getting their opportunities, maybe they can get the opportunities now. Now, when it comes to Gary Trent, do you think that's a possibility that he can, if he exercises a player option, if he can maybe do some more damage?
Yeah, and I absolutely hope so, because under Nick Nurse, like I said, I don't think he was used to his maximum potential. And I mean, it all starts from the top, right? So if you look, you just mentioned that that Gary Trent Jr., he looked listless. He didn't look motivated. You know what? You could say that from 1 to 12 of all the players, and the media has actually been good about reporting on that. And you know what? It starts from the top. So you have Nick Nurse, okay? Here's a coach that has a team that has all sorts of problems, okay? Offensively, defensively this past season, all sorts of problems. And what is he doing? And the players are watching this. And this is the thing, and this is another subject, but the reason why in Toronto you can get away with things, whereas in other NBA franchises you can't. Nurse, this whole season, what did he do this season? He was starring on a sitcom. I believe he was taking on roles. This is while his team is absolutely garbage. He's taking on sitcom roles, which takes time to rehearse, memorize lines. Then you actually have to shoot. He's doing commercials, right? Yeah, he's doing commercials. He's playing guitar for the Arkells at a concert, which again, you have to rehearse. You have to practice, and then you actually have to do the show. This is all while his team is tanking, going down the players are watching this, right? So can you imagine him doing this? Can you imagine this happening in LA? The Lakers are playing absolute garbage. LeBron and AD are there, and this guy is doing commercials. This guy is doing sitcoms. The media would absolutely feast on him. And this is why I always get on the Toronto media, man. We're always getting
celebrating all this. They
celebrated, man. They say, "Oh, look at Nurse. He's look at him," and all the Raptor fans, they all get giddy. Oh, look at our little coach doing this. Meanwhile, your team is doing absolutely garbage. You should not be on TV. You should not be doing concerts, man. You've got major problems, man, at work, your full-time job.
Yeah, it's like if I were to slack off at my work, I'd be cut. Easy.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And the players are seeing this, right? So it all starts from the top. They're following
suit. You're saying they're following suit.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you mentioned, they all looked listless. They all looked unmotivated this season. And the media has said that many times. They just don't look like the same Raptors. And defensively, and you can see that defensively, the Raptors may have not always been good, but they were always good on defense. This past season, they were horrible on both ends of the floor, in my opinion.
except for, having 3 players in the top 10 when it comes to steals, but
Yeah, with the defensive way they play, let's look at OG Anunoby, my favorite player, right? So he finally made the All NBA defensive team, second team at that, and the reason why
congratulations to him.
And the reason for that is because he led the league in steals, and good for him. But it shows how much the NBA puts emphasis on steals. Okay, and the way actually OG Anunoby gets his steals. So if you want, we can break this down. I don't know if I'm going to mess up any of your other podcasts, so you can cut me off.
You can come on for that one. We could talk about OG another time.
But he gambles a lot for his steals in the passing lane, and that's how mainly he gets his steals. I've seen him get burned countless of times where he's out there, he's reached out, and the ball just off the fingertips, and it gets to the player, that the receiver that the passer wanted to get to, and it just messes up the whole defense. Now the whole defense has to adjust, has to rotate, has to neutralize the open man that OG Anunoby created that situation. And the NBA does not put a lot of emphasis on the way he gets those steals, which is the reason why he's on the NBA second team. Okay, you look at guys like Alex Caruso, who's on the first team, 14th overall in steals in the NBA. Drew Holiday on the Bucks, 45th on the All NBA steals list. And the reason those guys made the first team is because they have an overall impact on the defensive end.
Exactly. It's not all about the numbers sometimes. People get that twisted.
Right.
It's not all about the numbers. It's how the plays are brought about. Now, as you talk about defense, before we get out of here, I would like to ask you about Gary Trent's impact on defense. Do you think that will be missed if he does not come back to the city of Toronto and play for your Raptors?
A lot. Gary Trent Jr., in my opinion, is a very underrated defensive player. I remember 2 seasons ago when I was watching the Raptors at the beginning of the season with Pascal, he basically was running that team defensively. I remember how the media, Nurse was praising him. The media was praising him. I was praising him. I couldn't believe what I was watching. We all couldn't believe what we were watching, right? So he has that potential, man. Like, he's got the potential to be a great offensive player. He's got the potential to be a great defensive player. I would love to see him back in Toronto, man. I hope he exercises his player option. I hope he comes back, because I think with a new coach, and I hope it's not going to be a brand new coach with no. And again, I don't want to mess up any of your other podcasts, but I hope it's not going to be a new coach with no coaching experience, because, like the phrase said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We're not good when we hire coaches with no coaching experience. And you could go right down the list. The best ones: Lenny Wilkins, Hall of Famer. Dwayne Casey was an assistant coach, and he did get a head coaching job. But out of the 9 coaches that we've had since the beginning of the franchise, none of them have gone on to become head coaches after the Raptors have fired them as head coaches.
Except for Dwayne Casey. Except for Dwayne Casey.
I don't expect, I really don't see any team gambling on Nick Nurse as a head coach. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. I'd be really surprised if another NBA team gives him a head coaching spot. Great assistant coach on the defensive end, out of his league. Should not be at all anywhere near, running an offense.
Yeah, that Kawhi look. So, Kirk, all very good, interesting points. I will be covering that very shortly on the Raptors coaches. If you would love to ever come back on and discuss OG Anunoby on his defense,
I'd love to.
I would love to. I'm more than welcome to, and I'm pretty sure our fans out there would really enjoy that. Thank you guys, you viewers. But before we get out of here, since time's a little ticking.
Okay.
That's what our money. Time's ticking. So sorry, I'm just boosting. But do you have any last things that you would like to say to people? Because you have not been online in a while, really, with your podcast. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that you would like to get off your chest. Do you have anything left that you would like to say openly to the internet?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of things to say. I'd like to say, like,
Hey, give me one.
I told you so on so many different fronts. I mean, OG Anunoby, Kyle Lowry, Nick Nurse. I could go on and on, I'm just glad that the Raptors, that Masai has finally stopped. The charade is up with Nick Nurse. Thank God, because that's where it had to start. It had to start with Nick Nurse. He had to be gone. And now I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait till the season starts. I haven't felt like that in 2 years. I can't wait till the season starts. I want to see what happens. I know it's going to be an unpopular thing to say again, but I hope OG Anunoby is not on the team. I hope we trade him and get something big in return. We should have got Sabonis at the deadline for him. You can go ask Sacramento how much he's changed the culture there and what he's done for that franchise. Can you imagine that guy on Toronto? We would have been contenders, man, this season had they made that, and this season, going into this season, had they made that trade. And OG would have been in Indiana where he was playing his college ball. We have an import, a foreign player, which Toronto has a history of keeping, because anywhere in the NBA they play, it's going to be foreign. They're international players, right? They don't care if they're playing in the US, and you don't get that US player, I want to go play at home, I only want to play in the States and all that crap. We had that guy, and that to me, I look at Masai and I go, dude, big mistake, man. That was a big mistake. We could have been contenders, man.
You know what? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Depending on how you play everything, that's how it goes. And everything in life, relationships, professionalism, that woulda, coulda, shoulda. I agree with you on a lot of your points. Kirk, you come on here and a lot of people really don't like your take. So if you guys are out there and you don't like his takes, talk to him. Don't talk to me.
You can message me. I know when I say it's unpopular, but hey, man, I have my opinions. You still disagree with them, but like I said, man, 2 years after, I told you so.
I already get enough of that, and I'm pretty sure you, as an Esquire, when you're in the courtroom, you can validate these arguments. But when it comes down to the Nick Nurse thing, I will just tell you guys, be tuned in. Our next episode that is dropping will be about the Raptors' next possible head coach, and there will be a deep dive into that. And before we get out of here, Kirk, thank you very much for coming back on, man. This is mi casa e su casa. You're welcome anytime to come on. All you gotta do is just give me a shout. Let me know. Right.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate you for having me back. I know it's probably an unpopular decision, but thank you. I appreciate it. And hopefully, I will be back, man. We'll talk a lot about the Raptors because, like I said, I'm very excited, very optimistic about what's going to be happening. Masai said there's going to be some major changes happening after Nick Nurse. Let's see what happens.
Come back when the changes happen. Maybe Skip will join us.
Yes, I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely.
So all I gotta say is thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. We really appreciate it. Shout out to all the To The Point family. Kirk, you're part of the family too. Shout out to the whole To The Point family. Shout out to you guys out there. I consider you guys family that watch the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for supporting our guests as well. You guys know what to do. Find us. To The Point. Find me. I ain't that hard to find. I walk down the street and people are like, yo, King from To The Point. I ain't hard to find. Okay. You guys can find Kirk. Look up his back catalog. See all the things he said, and you can disagree with him some more. But so on behalf of myself, everybody out there, you guys, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and peace.